you're brand new to traveling, or maybe you haven't traveled in a while, the airport can be very intimidating. With all the people, the kiosks, the security, the counters, it can get quite confusing and anxiety inducing very quickly. In today's video, I am going to walk you through the steps to help you navigate the airport with a lot less stress. Let's go. Hey y'all, it's Christy the Gen X Gypsy, and welcome. In today's video, I am starting a series for beginner travelers or those of you who maybe haven't traveled in a while but are ready to get right back in the saddle. Like I said in the intro, in today's video, we are going to go through the steps to navigate the airport and make it a lot less stressful. Now, the first step that you can do is to check in online. Now, most airlines will send you an email or a text message or however you have signed up to receive information from them. They will send you something at about 24 hours before your plane is due to take off, and it will be an email inviting you to go ahead and check in online or through their app, whichever way you prefer. I highly encourage you to take advantage of checking in online and as early as you possibly can. This will allow you to be able to pick better seats if you want to change your seats from where you originally chose them when you got your tickets, or perhaps you got a ticket that you weren't allowed to choose your seats at the time that you purchased them, and during online check-in is the time that you will be able to choose those seats. Nowadays, many of the airlines are charging for better seats, and they will give you that opportunity to pay for a better seat when you do your online check-in, if that is something you want to do. But if you're not wanting to pay for a better seat, you can also take a look around and see if there's a seat that maybe is a little closer to the front if you have a short connection, or maybe you want a window seat rather than an aisle seat. And this is the time that you can make those changes if they are available to you. One tip here, if you have not checked out seatguru.com, and I will link that below, that is a place that you can go and check out to see what are the best seats on the plane that you are going to be on. You can just go on and enter your flight number, and it will go ahead and pull up that airplane, and it'll tell you what are the best seats on that particular airplane. So that's a place you can check to see if Seat Guru thinks that there's a better seat than you already have, and maybe you can find something that might be a little more comfortable for you. Now, during the online check-in process, this is also where you will have the opportunity to pay for a checked bag if you have decided to do so. Now, a lot of airlines are charging for extra carry-on bags now too, so you want to read closely when you buy those airplane tickets what they are charging for and what they're not charging for. Many of the smaller, cheaper airlines will charge you basically a la carte for pretty much everything. They will charge you for your checked baggage, which is fairly common these days. They will charge you for your carry-on bag, and by carry-on bag I mean a suitcase that is, a normal size suitcase that you would put in the overhead bin above your head. And different airlines have different sizes for that. In fact, I'm going to do another video that specifically talks about packing for air travel and the need to go to your airline and check out what sizes of suitcase that they want you to have for a carry-on bag. And then the third item that you would have is a personal item, which is usually a backpack or a laptop bag or like a duffel bag or something like that. That is usually the item that they prefer you to put under the seat in front of you by your feet so that you don't take up more space in the overhead compartment bin. Like I said, the airlines all have different rules, so it is important to look at your airline that you are flying on and be familiar with what their regulations are for what you are allowed to bring for the ticket that you purchased and what you might have to pay extra for. In this case, when you are checking in online, and if you want to check a bag, which means you will take a bag to the attendant when you get to the airport, they will take it from you, they will put it on the plane, and it will be in baggage claim when you arrive at your destination. That's what I mean by a checked bag. Now, I know this is breaking it down simplistically for some of you who have traveled a lot, but I also want to make sure that those of you who have not had an opportunity to travel understand what I'm talking about when I use certain phrases. So back to the online check-in process. Once you've gone through where they ask you if you want to change your seats, where they ask you if you want to check a bag, if you have chosen to do any of those things where you have to pay extra, you will pay for them right there during your online check-in. You'll get past that part of online check-in, and then it will bring up your boarding passes. Now you can choose to print your boarding passes at home if you have a printer and you prefer actually having a piece of paper in your hand. You can also have them digitally sent to you, so emailed to you, or if you have the app on your phone, you can save them in that airline's app. The thing that I would encourage you to do if you get a digital copy of your boarding pass is to actually make a screenshot of all of the boarding passes that you will need for your trip. Unfortunately, Wi-Fi and data services aren't always the best at airports for a variety of reasons. And if you can't get a good signal and you're relying on an app or your email to come up to be able to pull that barcode up. Basically, the barcode is what security needs to see. And you can't pull that up because of Wi-Fi or internet. You're gonna have to go back to the counter and get a boarding pass printed for you, and it saves time if you have a screenshot of it and you can just pull it up in your photos and you can show it to security that way. And we'll get through those steps in just a second. I know I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I apologize. The point I wanted to make is that you can get your boarding passes in a variety of ways. You can print them out at home. You can put them digitally into a digital wallet of sorts and take a screenshot of them. Or if you prefer, when you get to the airport, those kiosks that are at the counters, or even potentially going up to the counter and talking to an attendant, they will print boarding passes for you as well. If this is your first time flying or you haven't flown in a while, I highly encourage you to get to the airport an hour and a half to 2 hours early. Make sure you check your boarding passes for the actual boarding time of your flight, not the departure time of your flight. Boarding is usually started about 30 to 45 minutes before the plane is supposed to depart, and they usually close the gate 15 to 20 minutes before the plane is supposed to depart. So that departure time isn't the time that you actually need to get to the gate by. You are probably going to have missed your plane if you're looking at that number as the time that you need to get there. So make sure that you know what your boarding time is, not your departure time, and that's what you need to go off of. Now, when you get to the airport, and if you are planning to park your car during the duration of your trip, take a picture of where you parked your car. If you're flying off on vacation somewhere for a week or 2 weeks and you're going to be drinking margaritas and hanging out on the beach or touring all these beautiful museums, there's a good chance you might forget where your car is parked when you arrive home at the airport, especially if you are arriving home late at night. So I highly encourage you to take a picture of where your car is parked. Make sure you have, if there is a letter on a pole or a number somewhere on the parking deck, what level you are parked on, all of that information, whatever you can get in a picture, or put it in the notes of your phone so that you know when you get back home exactly where you're parked, and that's one less stress you have to worry about, especially since it's at the end of your vacation. When you get inside the airport, if you're checking a bag, go to your airline's counter area and follow the instructions. At many of the large airports now, they have kiosks where they want you to put in your information and you will print your own baggage tag for your suitcase, and then you will go stand in line and hand that bag to an agent. So just make sure you follow the instructions. There's usually 1 or 2 employees that are around, agents that are there to help you through the process if you have questions and need help. Make sure to use their help because that's what they're there for. If for some reason you were not able to check in online, say you're coming home from a country that didn't have good Wi-Fi service or something of that sort, when you get to the airport, again, follow the instructions that you find there. Most of the places, even in foreign countries now, have kiosks set up so that you can go and put your information in the kiosk and be able to print your boarding passes there, print your baggage tags there if you need to, all of the things that you need to do you are available on that kiosk. And worst case scenario, you can always go stand in line and talk to an agent at the counter, and they are very helpful. Remember to always be kind, as my shirt says. Everybody is a little short-staffed still these days, and even though people might come across as a little grumpy or short with you, just remember that they are doing their job and they are processing through tons of people every day, and a smile and a thank you will go a long way when you are traveling. If you're enjoying this video and like the information that I'm sharing, could you do me a favor and boop that like button? It does make a difference, and thank you. Now it's time to go through security, and this is the most stressful part of flying because it feels rushed, people seem a little grumpy, people are waiting in line behind you, and the rules keep changing. Even the most seasoned travelers can get flustered in security, so keep that in mind. And if you follow situational awareness and these basic rules that I'm going to share, you should make it through security just fine. First, make sure that you have your ID and your boarding pass out and available to show the screening agent. I would highly recommend that before you ever get in the security line, that you've already pulled out your ID and your boarding pass to show the screening agent, and keep those in your hand while you make your way up to the first agent that you're going to encounter. So you're going to stand in a line, and that line is going to then take you to an agent who is sitting usually at like a lectern kind of place, and you're going to hand him or her your ID and your boarding pass. Now, if your boarding pass is a screenshot on your phone, they will most likely have you scan that on their little reader there, and then keep your phone in your hand. They're not going to want to touch your phone. They will probably take your ID from you and look at it fairly closely because that's their job. Now, once you are past that part of security, you can put your phone and your ID away in a pocket, either in your jacket or your backpack or your personal item, wherever you have a good pocket that is secure for you to store those things in. Now, once you're past that agent, you may or may not be directed to which line you should get into. Usually at most big airports, there's an agent that is directing you to which line of the conveyor belt portion of security they want you to go to, because they want to be able to keep the pace going at a good rate. Now, follow their instructions. If there's nobody there, pick the shortest line. That's what I do. If you are having to wait in order to get up to the conveyor belt, if you are wearing laced up shoes or zipped up boots or any shoe that's going to take a little more effort to get off when you get to the bins, I would go ahead and untie your tennis shoes or unzip your boots and just be ready to be able to slip those off really quickly. When it's your turn to load the bins, I would pull out 2 bins. In the first bin, you're going to want to put your shoes, your jacket, your liquids bag, and your food bag if you have one with you. Put all that stuff in one bin. In the second bin, you are going to want to pull out all of your electronics that are bigger than your cell phone. So if you're traveling with a laptop, you want to have your laptop out, a Kindle, I think Game Boys, and basically any other electronic that is bigger than your cell phone, iPads. Put those in the second bin. Now, for the conveyor belt, I would send your shoes and jacket bin. Then I would put your carry-on bag if you are taking a carry-on bag. Then your personal item, which does not need to go in a bin, like your backpack or your laptop case or your whatever you have as your personal item. That next, and then lastly the bin that has your electronics in it. That would be the last thing that I would put on the conveyor belt to go through, so that you can keep an eye on it while you are waiting to go through your own detector process. So once you've put all of those things on the conveyor belt and they're starting their way through, they will call you over to stand and wait to go through the detectors. And most of the time they're doing a detector now where you have to put your hands over your head and there's like a thing that goes around you, and scans your whole body. Some still have the old-fashioned like metal detector type where you just walk through. It just depends. Every airport is different, and just be prepared for either of those. Now, one trick, if you're a little sketch about walking in your socks or barefoot if you wear sandals through an airport because of all the germs and everything else that, you know, are in public places, a suggestion is to take an old pair of socks and wear that second layer of socks on your feet when you are getting ready to go to the airport. And then once you're through security and you've walked through those detectors, you can just take off that old pair of socks and throw them away and leave the regular socks on. Personally, I feel like I get exposed to germs all the time, and it's not really something I worry about, but I do know that there are people out there that are a little more weirded out about that. Another option is to carry sanitizer wipes with you, and you could just wipe off the bottom of your feet before you put your shoes on too. I do carry a bottle of sanitizer on my backpack when I travel, so I always have that to put on my hands after I've made it through security, even though I'm not really that sketched out about germs. After you've made it through the detectors, you want to go back over to the conveyor belt to gather your items. Now make sure you don't reach around the wall of the conveyor belt while they are still scanning your stuff. You need to let it come all the way down, and then you can start grabbing it. Make sure you pull all of the stuff out of the bins that are your items, and make sure you take that empty bin and place it in the pile of the other empty bins. Unfortunately, I've traveled a lot lately where people are just leaving them willy-nilly, and you know, sometimes there's agents there to pick them up and put them away. Other times they just start getting piled up, and I don't know, it's just think about the people behind you and don't be a rude traveler. Once you have your items, there are usually benches that are on the other side of security, so you can sit on those benches to put your shoes back on, rearrange the stuff in your carry-on bag or your personal item wherever you need to, like return your electronics to, or your liquids bag to, or your food bag, whatever you had to pull out and you now need to get back into the bags that you are traveling with. You can take your time, don't feel rushed there, you're through security now, everything will be fine now. So a side note here, and I mentioned this a little earlier, sometimes when you're at the airport, you can feel like the airport employees, especially the TSA agents, can be rude and unfriendly. And I just want to remind you that they are doing a very difficult job, and it's not their job to be a friendly customer service person to you. They are doing a job to help keep our airports safe and secure. So make sure that you don't take their rudeness or their standoffishness personally, and reward them with a smile and a thank you. It can go a long way, and after all, it'll probably make you feel better too. Now that you're through security, you want to go directly to your gate. Now, don't stop and get coffee, don't stop at the newsstand, and unless you really have to go, don't go to the bathroom. Go to your gate first. Figure out where your gate is. Make sure your gate is still actually your gate. If you've checked in online, sometimes they will change the gates overnight and your flight will have been moved to another gate. And check to make sure that the boarding times are still the boarding times that are on your boarding pass. Once you're there and everything is copacetic, then you can go get your coffee, go use the bathroom, buy an expensive book to read at the newsstand, whatever you want to do while you're in the airport. I personally like to take that time to rearrange the stuff in my personal bag and my carry-on bag, to move things around if I need to take things out of my personal bag, like my liquids bag that I don't necessarily need to be able to get to on the plane, and I can put those in my carry-on bag. Something to think about, a lot of airplanes are requesting that people check their carry-on bags these days. It can be for a number of reasons. Perhaps the plane is overbooked and they don't have enough room in the overhead compartment for all of the carry-on bags. Or perhaps there's an issue with the balance weight of the plane and they need to have more bags underneath in the checked area. Whatever the case may be ready to be asked to have your carry-on bag checked. And sometimes you don't get a choice. Sometimes they will just take it from you and check it, and you will have to wait and pick it up at baggage claim when you get to your destination. So whatever you want to have in the plane with you, make sure you have moved all of that into your personal bag before you go to board the plane. Now, the very last thing you want to do before you board the plane is go use the restroom one more time. Airplane bathrooms are just not very nice. They do get cleaned, obviously, between flights, but they get dirty really quickly. So if you can avoid having to use an airplane restroom, unless you're on a really long flight, then obviously you're going to need to use it. But if you can avoid using it, I would suggest whatever it is you need to do to avoid using the airplane restroom. And especially if you have a window or a middle seat and you kind of have to ask the person next to you to get up so that you can go use the bathroom, sometimes it's nice to not, have to do that to the other person. But if you're on a really long flight, getting up and moving around is actually a very good thing. And I actually talk about that in my video about how to not get jet belly or jet bloat. And I will link that at the end and below in the description. So now you're all pottied up and you're ready to board the plane. Make sure you follow the instructions the airlines have for boarding. There is sometimes a group number on your boarding pass or a level on your boarding pass or some sort of indication as to what they will be calling for when it's your turn to board. So make sure you know what that is on your boarding pass before you go and get in line, because a lot of times there is a process that they go through for whatever efficiency reasons that they have that they do it, and I haven't figured that out yet, but there is a process they do. So make sure you're paying attention for when your group number is called and that you are in that group number when it is ready to go. Usually the cheaper your ticket is, the later you're going to board, and that also puts you in a position where they are more likely to take your carry-on bag and check it from you as well. As soon as your group gets called, try to be one of the first people in that group so that you can get on the plane and find a place for your baggage to go. As you are boarding, be patient with the people in front of you, but also be as efficient and cognizant of those around you as you board too. Try to get to your seat as quickly as you can, and if you do have your carry-on bag that needs to get stored in the overhead compartment, then try to find a space for that as quickly as you can. Again, if you're towards the end of the groups being called, it may be a little more challenging to find that space. Just try to do it as quickly as you can, and don't be afraid to ask the flight attendants for help. Again, that is what they are there for, and they know how to move the bags around so that more things can fit in those overhead compartments than necessarily the general public does. Now, I like to keep my personal bag with me and store it under the seat in front of me. I like to have access to the stuff in my bag throughout my flight, and I don't want to have to keep getting up and getting into the overhead compartment in order to get things out. So I just keep my backpack down under the seat in front of me because I'm usually traveling with food that I want to eat. I usually have my bottle of water that I filled up in the airport, and my entertainment is in there. So I like to keep all that stuff with me where I can easily access it. And sometimes on the flights, they never turn the fasten seatbelt sign off, and they don't want you opening those overhead compartments when it's a bumpy ride. So my suggestion is to keep those personal items with you that you want to use during your flight. Now it's time to sit back, relax, and enjoy your trip. And if you are looking for a more in-depth video on how to pack and get through security faster, check out this video next. Have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.